That's right, Hearthstone, where nobody's that good, just everybody else sucks.
I just love that, like, Seiko's such a nice guy. Like, he starts that sentence, and then, like, his brain starts formulating the end of it, and you can see the pause. It's like, oh, I can't finish this without throwing shade at everyone. Oh, well, I guess they're all just worse.
That's that German that's coming out. In
Okay,
he's got to be real for a second there. I am kind of surprised that he doesn't think he's that good. You know, it's sort of like that's the effect, is the better someone is at something, the more little mistakes of their own that they see. And so they end up underestimating themselves a lot of times because of that. They're just like, well, I see how many mistakes that I make.
Yeah, I mean, it's classic Dunning-Kruger, right? There is a scale to how good you are versus how good your perception of your ability is, and there's a very well-known effect of how that happens. So often the better you are at something, as you say, because you're so good at analyzing it, you then are able to spot all the mistakes that you yourself make, and then you lower your own perception of how good you are at that skill.
Yep, indeed. So let's go ahead and take a look at Bunnyhoppor Shaman, which he'll be playing first in this series. He's gone with Quest Shaman, and a lot of people have been a fan of the Mogu Flesh Shaper Mutate this week. With just trying to have that big cheese in the early game where you slam this bad boy, you trade with something, and you make an 8-drop.
Yeah, I mean, we were having this discussion just before we started about, you know, the need for some kind of high roll ability in a good Hearthstone deck, just because, you know, if you're playing a deck that just doesn't have a free 15% of the time I win the game and your opponent's deck does, you're just automatically giving up win rate to your opponent. We were arguing about whether that's present in Shaman. I would argue that when the Mutate package comes in, it certainly becomes more high roll potential for that Mogu Flesh Shaper to blow the game out early on.
Yeah, and I definitely think that potential is always going to be seeded in matchup, right?
Yep,
so, like against Warrior, for instance, Mogu Flesh Shaper Mutate, not nearly as powerful as it would be against like pretty much any aggressive deck that's out there. Like, you queue into an aggressive deck and you're able to kill a 3/3 and then make an 8-drop on the same turn, like, that's a high roll.
Yeah, for like 1 or 2 mana as well, by the way, a lot of the time.
Yeah, you're playing against Warrior and you have a 5-mana Mogu Flesh Shaper in your hand. It trades into something, you mutate it into an 8-drop, and then they play Dinomatic.
Right.
And you're going, oh, I didn't really do anything. I just threw away 2 cards.
Yep. It's a very, very big difference, but this is a deck that Admirable very much has his eye on overall. It's Admirable's favorite deck right now, so expect him to be getting hyphy when we get some Quest Shaman games on stream.
Well, that's the thing, is I'm expecting Bunnyhoppor to pilot this deck pretty immaculately. You know, I very rarely have any problems with some of the plays that I see Bunnyhoppor make. You know, I think to the World Championship versus Viper, where he had an early blunder in a 100-mirror match. That's about it that I've seen in quite a while. Like, you'll often see him frustrated by something he does, and it's because he missed something. Like, oh, I could have had an extra health on a minion. Like, that's a big deal. But Bunnyhoppor, you know, generally speaking, has extremely good macro play and extremely good technical play. I'm looking at both of those things for 2 factors that he absolutely is going to nail this game.
And the mistake for Bunny in the World Championship was just so out of character that I remember we were all just sitting back in the green room just watching on our monitor, and we were just shocked. Like, we were aghast. Just like, Bunny, what have you done? This is so not you.
Sometimes you just slam a snake trap.
And the fine margins of Hearthstone, that one mistake on turn 3 of, I believe, game 1 cost him the whole series, the way it broke down in terms of the matchups going back and forth.
We talked at length after that because he was quite upset by his loss, and not necessarily by the loss, but by his hunter play in that one particular game.
Right.
It was something else. We're getting underway, and a pretty strong opener from Bunnyhoppor here.
Yeah, Questing Explorer, probably the most polarizing card, depending on, you know, the position in your deck, which is why I think you do have to mulligan very aggressively for it. I made this point yesterday, but I've started just, you know, throwing away Novice Engineer just because I want to replace it specifically with Questing Explorer in my opening hand.
Yeah.
Just because Novice Engineer is a card you can draw at any point of the game, and it's perfectly reasonable. Questing Explorer does kind of have to come into play on the first 5 or 6 turns to have any impact.
Yeah, something I've really liked about this deck is just how strong double battle cry effects can be. So I'm actually curious to see if Bunnyhoppor is going to be going with Questing Explorer here in particular. I do think that there is an argument for Sludge Slurper and just trying to get the lackeys rolling. Take the Overload while you have it, and you have a nice 2-drop to slam on the board. And that's one of those small little factors that will come into play. Saddle made an interesting point to me yesterday, which was that you asked me, does Quest Shaman have the most raw amount of decisions that any deck has to make? And I think so. There's a lot of just generated stuff in this deck.
There is, yeah. So you factor in, like, hand size, which is generally huge. So that is already one modifier for the amount of decisions you can make. The fact that you can press or not press your hero power and it's actually massively impactful, which it's not in most decks. Normally, if you have 10 cards in your hand, you're never pressing your hero power. That's not an option. So that multiplies all your decision points. Plus, you have a ton of discover options in your deck, plus you have a bunch of random generation in your deck, plus you have a bunch of lackeys in your deck. Like, all of these things then exponentially multiply those amount of decisions that you can make on any given turn.
Yeah, and it's a really interesting thing too, because it's like there's so many things that you create over the course of the game that I feel like in itself in one game it almost tends to balance out. Where it's like there's just so many things that oftentimes you can search for specific cards. Like there have been in games where I've had enough lackey generation post quest completion that I'm like, okay, I'm going to search for Bloodlust now.
Yep.
And for Seiko, I'm anticipating he might be foregoing completion of the quest after he sees Bunnyhoppor continue to slam threats on the board. It's, you know, little paper cut threats, but those hurt.
They do, yeah, and this is one of the weird breakpoints against Druid now, is that, you know, normally you'd be looking at this board like, yikes, I can't really develop into this without just walking into swipe next turn. But now there's that added layer of complexity where you're like, well, he can't swipe next turn because he has 4 mana and he wants to float. But then on top of that, you know, like, a good player will very much consider just swiping and not floating mana on the next turn anyway, because of the payoff you get. You essentially get that turn back later just by taking all the damage off the board. So even though it looked fairly straightforward turn for Bunny, it was relatively complex in how he wanted to play or not play around swipe.
Yeah, so the options for Seiko are going to be bees and complete quest, or it's going to be swipe. And so the difference in those two is going to be, I think, Bunnyhoppor's list, which includes Sandstorm Elemental, of course, because that's just one of the best Shaman cards. I think when you leave 3 bees around and your opponent has the option to just clear them off with a 2-cost card and keep going, looking a lot less appealing than a swipe is. However, the earlier you use bees, the less likely it is for Bunnyhoppor to have that card.
I think Seiko's decisions is also influenced by the fact that he doesn't really have good choose one effects to do right now, apart from the Wrath. Like, if he was to complete quest this turn, it's not like he's popping off next turn with a big choose one turn anyway.
Yeah.
So he kind of has that free turn where he's allowed to swipe, then he can complete the quest on 5, and then turn 6 is where his hand really starts to come alive with choose one effects.
Checks the battle cry real quick. I'm picturing Evil Totem and perhaps Mind Control tech on this turn.
What to do?
Lots of lackeys in hand plus generation. And if he's going for Ethereal Lackey, what that tells me is Bunnyhoppor wants a particular card from his deck, and so he's going to be looking to draw 2 cards here instead.
That is interesting, because I was definitely, when I was testing this matchup, I kind of fell onto, if I got Ethereal Lackeys, I would try and double them up just for maximum chances at Earthquakes, which are just insane in the matchup. But Bunny, as you said, this does seem to influence his decision to say, oh, no, I want actual cards in my deck. Like, I don't want to focus on board clears, I want to focus on actually drawing things and pushing tempo myself.
Yeah, I'm thinking Mogu Flesh Shaper in his hand might be an influence. Where, you know, the earlier you use a mutate on that card, the better it is.
Yeah.
Jewels of the sun.
Perfect draw for Seiko, didn't really have anything to do this turn. So completing the quest by spending 4, which technically is perfect mana utilization in this ridiculous topsy-turvy world that we now live in thanks to Quest Druids.
Ooh, free card. It's TJ's piece of candy. Yeah, I think Mutate was exactly what Bunnyhoppor was trying to find. You anticipate, you know, like a Bees or Crystal Merchant or what have you.
Not a lot of ways to generate significant pressure right now for Bunny, which is kind of what he wants to be doing.
Yeah, so if he can't generate pressure in the next couple turns, that tells me he's going to have to be on a different game plan.
Yes.
Wonder.
That game plan is very, very tricky when you are not sitting on a bunch of Ethereal Lackeys to find you removal spells that aren't in your deck.
He is sank into the bottom right of the screen, hoping that that's not the final destination. And you can see, even just as little as 1 damage, Bunnyhoppor prioritizes. That's something else I've noticed about the players that I've considered the strongest in terms of technical play, is they tend to favor the slightest amount of ability to just hit the opponent in the face.
Are you sure that that's not because you love hitting people in the face so much that you noticed when that happens more than other things?
Oh, you're right, Dr. Soddle, that is what I meant. Sorry.
What does that mean?
Like reading into it psychologically. I don't think that's the case.
Okay.
I think I'm noticing that good players hit people in the face.
That was a perfectly acceptable answer without the sarcasm. Thank
Well,
you
I
very
wanted the sarcasm.
much. Well, fair enough. Actually, that's a good point. Fair enough. Good point, Paul.
Yeah, a turn like the one that Bunnyhoppor just had was why I think he's so aggressively searching for mutate in the previous turns. And now he's approaching some, I think, really interesting spots where his hand is offering him a lot of potential to go multiple directions.
I wonder.
Some things to consider is how powerful the Wasp is right now, but how powerful it is if you can pressure your opponent and they have to hit an Oasis.
Right.
And notice that Bunnyhopper's, he's been light on using the hero power so far.
Yeah, that's 2 turns in a row. Last turn wasn't really a good-looking hero power turn because he wanted to respect the Crystal Merchant anyway, so he might as well just forego it, and as you said, just loaded up the extra damage on board. But this turn, he definitely had some hero power possibilities.
Double punch on away. The Starwood High Mountain Ice Room for Mana Spice coming right up.
Nice use of the Barista. Heals it back up to protect from some AoE potential. Keep chipping away.
Yeah, makes Starfall necessary and not just the second swipe also making a mess of this board, I guess.
Keeps getting faceless lackeys too. I mean, that's going to make Shutterwalk just summon a bunch of minions as well.
That is true, yeah.
Looks like Bunnyhoppor may be able to just generate boards that demand clears a lot.
Yep.
And now one of the most powerful turns that Seiko is going to have in terms of this mid stage.
Yeah, I said it played around swipe. It doesn't play around low-T swipe just as well. Yeah, Bunny gives a little lip curl. Didn't really want to see that coming out. The heal on the Barista was essentially to play around that exact kind of eventuality. Protected it against Wrath as well, which would have been able to come down with the low T. It's such a powerful card. I'm actually a little surprised that Seiko even attacks with the low T there. Because I've found in this matchup that just leaving it in stealth is an absolute nightmare for the Shaman to deal with. Because they just have so much board generation that just gets nuked away. Might be influenced by the fact that Seiko just doesn't have Starfall in his hand right now, so he feels like he just wants to use it as an actual attacking minion.
Also just the fact he's been getting pressured. You know,
Sure.
he's respecting what damage to face can mean.
Sure, it's fair.
Shaman is not a deck that's light on burst potential.
It's not.
If they haven't been pressured themselves.
Seiko's hand is not a hand that's light on healing, though. Ferocious Howl, Hidden Oasis, Hidden Oasis.
It's an excellent point.
Like, I feel like if Seiko's losing from here, he's losing to board. He's not losing to burst damage.
I wonder if did it protect from like specific lackey ranges with a weaponized wasp, I wonder?
Like straight one out, like straight lethal on that one turn.
Yeah.
If he didn't take the 2 off the board.
Yeah, so 2 kobold lackeys
up to
plus
4.
wasp would have been lethal actually.
Yeah, okay. Alright, I can see it.
Yeah, not the best involved for Bunnyhoppor. The 8 slot is just not what it used to be. It used to just be stacked. Now there's like, you know, a lot of battle cry things in there that aren't quite as good. But either way, Bunnyhoppor finds himself with an advantage. Wonder if Bunnyhopper's ever, you know, prompted to play Shutterwalk sooner rather than later, just with how many faceless lackeys are in the pool.
It is a really good board that he's going to be able to refill with. And like I said, like Bunny doesn't know the context of Seiko's hand. With 13 cards left, like you wouldn't really put your opponent on average on having both Hidden Oasis and a Ferocious Howl in their hand. So Bunny might still feel like he can still just load up Shuttle Walk with some life drinkers maybe and go down that route for burst damage. But from my perspective, it does seem like he's going to need to win this on board if he's going to win.
Captain Tusk killed by bees.
What a way to go.
Yeah.
Any more noises over there that you want to describe that draw with?
I think I adequately got my point across.
All right.
I mean, if you're asking for more noises, I can do that. 3 mana, draw a card, which turns into draw 2 cards.
Sure does.
I hope you like my invention.
There are no more extra cards to be drawn afterwards.
Sandstorm Elemental pretty much locked in this turn, I think.
I'd be pretty stunned if that didn't come down.
Whoa!
Wow.
Prepare to be stunned.
Oh yeah, I'm pretty stunned. Ooh.
I knew it was coming.
I'm really surprised by that. This ended up being a better turn, though, I think. That's what I mean. Like, Bunnyhopper's just got such strong technical play. Like, there's this very obvious thing in front of him. And he's like, wait a second. I can get better cards in play than this.
So there's a couple of things going on here that I can think of. Like, firstly, he might just be trying to keep up constant big board states, in which case this is a big board state, and he can then, because he just played more Faceless Lackeys, he can refill this immediately with another Shudder Walk anytime he wants. Secondly, because he drew Bog Slosher off the Novice Engineer, Bog Slosher Sandstorm Elemental can actually clear some reasonably sized Druid boards. Like, I'm thinking Cenarius boards specifically, where it makes the 4 health taunts. You can, you know, double up the Sandstorm Elemental, Bog Slosher it back to your hand, Sandstorm Elemental again, all in the same turn. And that quite often takes care of, like, one of the mid-range boards. Obviously, it's not going to interact with, like, a Nomi. It's very unlikely to deal with, like, a King Baoris kind of board. But one of those, like, mid-size boards that come in the middle stages of the game, it can actually be quite effective at clearing.
Yeah. Bog Slosher would have to be a useful Brewmaster in order for Sandstorm Elementals and pairs to be able to take care of a Nomi board. Just saying.
Yeah, the Sandstorm Elemental that ended up on the board would only be a 2/2, though.
So Bunnyhopper's aggression's been staved off, and now how does he continue that march? Whoa, Khadgar, former champ.
Yep.
Wait a minute. Does that summon?
Yep.
That summons 4 tokens?
Yeah, if you double the Battle Cry, yeah, it should do. See why it wouldn't.
Float like a butterfly.
1.
Sting like a bee.
Wait, hang on, he's actually
Sting like a
space short here, right?
Yeah, but he would have to trade off his Khadgar to get the space
Okay,
for it,
yeah,
in which
he
case
would.
he wouldn't get the 3rd
Yeah,
token.
fair enough. I didn't notice the 4 health on the
Wow.
Crystal Merchant was the problem.
That's so cool.
There is little time.
And another one for good luck. Oh,
I want the old
go
one back!
Go back!
I'll take a 4/8 though!
Yeah, it's fine.
Each time you play a spell, you draw a minion from your deck. That's the text on that 4/8. And Seiko's quickly got his work cut out for him on handling board pressure, but there are 9 cards in Bunnyhopper's hand. So clearing out boards is much less appealing when you know that there's the gas to back it up.
Yeah. I don't think it really matters how appealing it is. It's kind of a necessity when
Well,
there's 20+ damage staring back at you.
Yeah, and that here's the thing. I think that in a spot like this, normally, King Feoris kind of becomes your default, where you're like, I'll create board tension then. If my opponent doesn't trade, then I'll clear their board, and my damage represents lethal. Bunnyhoppor held on to 2 Sandstorm Elementals for a play just like that one. And so Seiko is going to say, this is just adding up to too much, and I need to do something about it.
I mean, also, you're only at, what, 37? Like, Bunny can just trade 1 damage off his board there and just start popping off with battle cries as well. It's so much damage to leave up.
I mean, I don't blame him for respecting it. He really wants to innovate. Innovate so bad.
Just hits face and innovates.
Wow.
The alpha play.
And so Bunnyhoppor now with Shutterwalk in hand. This is really the key turn, is because the Shutterwalk is offering so much development that I feel like this is a play that Bunnyhoppor is likely to go towards. He's seen both Starfalls now. He knows that there's multiple Oasis Surgers still in the deck that he's yet to see. And so I think if he doesn't develop strong into these next couple boards, he might find himself having to use defensive tools on regular things from Seiko instead of waiting for Chef Nomi and like earthquaking that. And so I think that pressure here for Bunnyhoppor means the most.
Yeah, he's seen 2 Swipe and 2 Starfall, right? So the chance that even this board of 2 drops is going to go anywhere anytime soon is very, very small. There's always that nagging feeling, though. You're looking at this hand size and you're like, there's so much value like being burned if I Shutterwalk here because there's just nothing to fill up.
Yeah,
like,
it's a matter of how much pressure you can deliver without Shutterwalk, right? I mean, he hits that button. He has said, I'm not Shutterwalking this turn.
Right. Yeah. Admirable and I are going to continue this debate for many, many turns, to many, many games, many weeks to come.
Well, it's admittedly much better here.
He is a advocate of Youthful Brewmaster in the deck, and I certainly see the value of paying 1 extra for the powerful things that Bog Slosher can do. And like you said, it is better here because it allows him to generate pressure. He gets to play a 5/5 here that he would not be able to do with a Youthful Brewmaster instead.
I think that's one of the beauties of Quest Shaman is you have ways to tech it different styles. And so depending on what matchups you want to beat will largely dictate what type of deck you build it as. If you're looking to have a lot more game against aggro, Mutate makes a lot of sense. I think if you're looking to have game against Control Warrior, multiple ways to return minions to your hand makes a lot of sense. I think if you're looking to beat Priest, well, that one's pretty tough. You got to play a lot of cards to beat Priest, and it kind of waters down your deck. But you get the point.
That's fine. You just discover some hexes and Earthshocks. You're chilling. Don't worry about it.
You know, I tried to do that, and you just don't have time to discover them.
Yeah, it still just doesn't really work.
You got to just pack the Earthshock.
Yeah.
Wonderful turn for Seiko as he discovers the Starfall. King Ferris needed some gas. I'm looking at 2 minions that Bunnyhoppor's not interested in taking with Mind Control Tech, and I'm looking at 3 that he very much is.
Yeah. I'm looking at 2 shots at doing so. If he does get 2 of the big ones, it's such a fantastic tempo swing because he can so easily clear out the rest of the board state after that as well. Like he just has to lead with the Mind Control Tech here. There's 1. Okay. Middling result. The fact that he took the taunt is like the big power spike there because now he just has complete freedom. Does he want to be ultimately aggressive? Does he want to take good trades? The taunt was the limiting factor on what he could do this turn.
Yeah, I'm kind of feeling some damage here. I think face damage is very relevant for Bunnyhoppor.
Same.
And if you're playing a Life Drinker to add to this,
There is little time.
the kicker is that additional Starfall from Seiko. Can he make use of it? I mean, it's not lining up well versus this board.
It kind of is with the trades that he can make. It also kind of is because he still has Innovate remaining, so he can actually play it alongside Hidden Oasis as well. Does that 1 extra health change the breakpoints on the Starfall? Not really. The 3/3 was already a problem.
Yeah, it's 2 across the board.
Yeah.
I think that there's a lot of interest for Seiko in playing a King Feoris this turn in terms of, you know, before he got his board stolen away and clocked in the face for 17 points of damage.
Yeah.
And so I think that that's a pretty drastic change in the game plan.
Starfall kills the 5/5 here. He trades 4 into the 4/6. The 2/2 dies. He can trade the Wisp into a 3/3. 5/5 can kill the 4/4, so the board is left with 3 3/1s on it at the end. Yeah, that doesn't feel fantastic. No, 2 3/1s. Let me correct myself.
Can you Wrath him? Did you count Wrath him at that?
Nope, you can Wrath as well. I think Starfall does actually end up being the play, yeah.
So Starfall into Wrath the 4/4? Ah, Wrath that and then Starfall the 4/6.
Yep.
Same thing. This is more info.
It's slightly better to do it this way because well, actually, no, it's the same thing. You would have Starfalled the 5/5 target. Either way, you're not trading into that 5/5, so it doesn't make a huge difference.
And that Oasis Surger, that's been one of the major differences in this game, is that both of those are buried in the bottom 3 cards of Seiko's deck. That's like the reason you play Quest Druid. If he can resist a Sandstorm Elemental this turn, I mean, hats off to you.
It's a pretty good turn, right? Hero Power, Sandstorm, former champ.
I wonder.
Something to think about when Bunnyhoppor initially held those Sandstorm Elementals was exactly how Oasis Surger interacted with his board. It was very often 3/3s. And so the idea is Sandstorm Elemental into an Oasis Surger to counter the pressure point that that card provides. Very smart. One of those Sandstorm Elementals just would have been gone from my hand already. And that would have been my last one.
Yeah, it's something that I did start to value more and more as I was testing this matchup is, you know, I was just using Sandstorm Elemental when it fit the curve and it did something reasonably effective. The more and more I played the matchup, I was like, this is actually a really vital card in a lot of key, like, late game points. So I should try and hold on to it more, and it's exactly what Bunnyhoppor is kind of mirrored here with the way he's played.
Yeah. And so with Shudderwalk and Earthquake, I'm curious if Bunnyhoppor actually gets through 2
Just
Nomis.
fatigue him, yeah. It's interesting, right?
Because there's 2 Life Drinkers that are added to that pool as well. So the fatigue clock for Seiko sets in quickly. And so
Probably end up being 2 mind control techs in the Shudderwalks as well, which can function as some element of board clear.
yeah, so here's the thing. If he wants to play 2 Nomis, what that means is he probably needs to figure out the way to defend himself right away. So that's going to mean double Oasis Surger this turn. So now he is set to whatever he draws next turn, unless he's taking too much damage, it's going to be a Chef Nomi. Swamp Queen Hagatha offered as well. You get 2 chances to find a board clear option from that one. Create a 5/5 and you teach it to 2 Shaman spells.
Twice, if you press the hero power first. And crucially, those things that you create, they're not spells in your hand, they're a minion with the battle cry of those spells, which you can then double again, which also then go into your Shudderwalk pool, and everything just comes together in a lovely little package. Unless you pick Plague of Murlocs, then it all goes wrong. Don't do that.
So he's going to Shudderwalk now. And so this tells me that he wants to have the counter pressure, so that way it's just the Nomi is not an option. It's not how you want the Bog Sloshers to go.
He just has to end up with a board here, though, right? The amount of 2-drops he's summoned, the amount of former champs he's played.
Sting like a bee.
Rush
Well, the
from
button's
Reaper.
green. 2/6 taunt. That's a big deal. Oh!
It's board clear.
Oh!
Yeah, the button.
That's why the board was green.
The button was green because the rush didn't have a target because it cleared the rest of the board.
So it's Zephyr's time.
Zephyr's Nether.
Is there anything else you could do?
Expedition, Starfall, Oasis Surger. That seems absolutely miserable. Let's not do that.
Yikes. Seiko just got pinned.
He did.
And I think it largely was because the Oasis Surgers were buried. He was playing so much defense for such a long time in the game, he never had an actual swing take place.
Right. And called it out all the way back, right? We were debating about whether he skipped his turn of quest procs. And we're like, well, he doesn't really have anything to do in his hand next turn anyway, so he might as well skip the turn. And that thing to do that he was missing was those Oasis Surges. Don't think there's an option here. He just has to take the Nether. Boom.
Can you like brawl, innervate something? No.
I do love how Zephyrus is like, maybe he wants a Blizzard. I don't know. Maybe he's got a 2-drop in his hand. I don't know. You can pick Blizzard if you want. I'm not going to tell you what to do. I'm not your dad.
That's lethal.
I'm almost out of cards.
Yep. Nice and easy from hand here for Bunnyhoppor with the Lava Burst picked up alongside Life Drinker damage. That is going to be 1-0 for Bunnyhoppor, and that is just a really, really interesting matchup, honestly. TJ and I played it at some length before we started broadcast this week. Just testing it out, getting a feel for it, and I definitely had a lot of fun playing the matchup. Watching Bunnyhoppor there, I definitely picked up a couple of tips from him, and also like saw him execute some things that I learned in my testing as well, which is always nice to see. But that's actually a pretty engaging matchup, honestly. I hope we see a great deal more of it to come.
Yeah, and the big thing to me is just the respect that you need to pay to your own Sandstorm Elementals in that matchup. It's not so much as, is it good right now? It's what's it best against? Because if you don't have alternatives, of course, you got to play your cards. But he had alternatives, and I think he made creative use of the alternatives he had. And while it looked a bit strange on the onset of him starting to make that play, you saw the payout potential later on where he was so comfortable in anything Seiko could do just because he had a pair of Sandstorm Elementals in hand.
Yeah, and I also want to pay heed to the fact that he allocated his resources so well that he just always had the perfect amount of cards remaining in hand where he could generate a big board if it got swept. Like if there was a Spell Power Starfall, if there was anything else to hit the board. After the Zephyrus Twisting Nether, it didn't matter because he just had lethal anyway. But in every other situation, he had the ability to refill. And you saw his mouse movements like keep defaulting back to his Shudder Walk. Like, you know, I've always, this boy's in the bank. I can always play this guy whenever I want to rebuild my board, and it did come down to that in the end when he finally ran out of ways to make that big oppressive board state. Keep Druid on the back foot. We've seen, weirdly, Warriors doing that in this week, which is not supposed to happen at all, but it still shows that is the key to the matchup. You've got to keep them on the back foot, so they have to use their resources defensively.
Yeah, indeed. I think, well, very well said. So we got to go to a break. When we come back, we're getting into game number 2 of Seiko taking on Bunnyhoppor, our feature match of the day with 6 matches on deck as well. Stay tuned.
My name is Sam Braithwaite, and I'm the Senior Global Franchise Lead for Hearthstone Esports. This event was especially cool because it takes place right after the brand new expansion, Rise of Shadows. Historically in Hearthstone Esports, we do our big events like this towards the end of an expansion cycle, but we really wanted to shake things up and really showcase that not only is the world champion the person who can pilot the best decks, but also the person who, when presented with a brand new game, can put together the best decks leading into the world championship. Cheers to you guys, the sold-out crowd here for the HCT 2019 World Championship.
Welcome back to 2019 HCT World Championship.
We've had a lot of fun games, and we're looking forward to the grand finals. Showdown. Viper versus Hunter Ace. Only one can be the champion. Oh, come on!
Match be dead.
Wacko pick a Vince coming out from Hunter Ace.
It's now or never. Arch villain reform.
Okay! In a completely solved game, Hunter Ace finds a way to maximize his chances. It's been a wonderful journey throughout the past few years of the Hearthstone Championship Tour, where stars were made and dreams came true.
My name is Kevin Casey Eberlein. A Grandmaster means to me that the last year of 2018 was a success. After having so much tournament success and getting to Grandmasters by most of the time just gaining points, gathering points and just performing well in tournaments means that I did something right. My goal was to get to the highest level of competition, and Grandmaster is the highest level of competition, and I achieved it, so I'm super happy. What I'm really good is at playing of muscle memory. So at the start of any meta game, the first week, I figure out the best decks, but I play them pretty poorly. So I just keep playing them till I actually know everything. And this is just, preparation is key. I don't only like Hearthstone, I love it, it's my passion. My life, like, it changed a lot since I started playing Hearthstone. I used to be really, really shy. Really? Yes. And then, like, after Thais, Crane talked to me, I just got a confidence boost. And from there, I changed quite a lot. Try to be the best what I can get out of myself, and then I'm gonna be happy.
It's Hearthstone Grandmasters for Europe. I'm Nathan, that's Admirable Zamora, and I'm joined by Simon Sato Welch, and we are amidst our match of the day, our featured match. Seiko taking on Bunnyhoppor in this one. And Bunnyhoppor getting a very clean win in game number one off of, I'd say, a bit of a poor draw from Seiko, not finding any tempo swings pretty much throughout the entirety of the game.
Yeah, I would say he was below average on his draws for sure, but I also think we need to give credit to Bunnyhoppor for just the way he executed a game plan there. It's definitely something that I felt like I picked up a couple of tips on how to play the matchup on just from watching that one game, just the way he rationed out his threats. He was representing a great balance between board pressure and burst damage at all times, which constantly left Seiko feeling fearful, caused him to make reactive turns. You know, he was under so much pressure that he had to attack with his Loti and then lose that as kind of that spell damage totem on board, which could have made a big difference later on.
Yeah, you had mentioned it, how important it is to keep Loti there, just to have your Starfalls and your swipes be boosted up to make a big difference. And he found a third Starfall at some point in that game, which would have made a huge difference.
Yep.
Had that Loti been able to stay.
Think about, like, we spent, like, what, 20, 30 seconds breaking down the best way to clear a board that was awkward because it was a bunch of 3/3s.
Yeah.
War Druid Loti, it solves that immediately.
Yeah. Did have to think about lethal potential on Bunnyhoppor's side, though. There was...
Yeah. Oh, absolutely not a criticism. When you pointed out that it was actually quite an easy lethal on the other side, if he left the 2-3 up, it made perfect sense. But I'm illustrating that more as a point that Bunnyhoppor did so well to keep the pressure up rather than Seiko making any kind of mistake.
Yeah. So we roll in with Tempo Rogue from Seiko taking on Bunnyhoppor with Warrior. And something about Giants in Rogue with Seiko.
We haven't talked about this at all this week somehow, right?
It just now showed up.
Yeah, it just hasn't come up. There is a couple of players who are playing old-fashioned Shark Rogue, where some players, like inspired by Hunter Ace, or at least popularized by Hunter Ace, were playing Sea Giant in that deck. Apparently, this season, I didn't get the memo, but there was a memo passed around that was the wrong Giant the whole time. You're actually supposed to be playing Mountain Giant in this deck.
Oh, whoa, it's Mountain Giant the ones that best one.
Like, I don't know if I just got like blacklisted from the mailing list of all the hot new tech, but I did not get this memo.
Yeah, so we've gone from Water Rogue now to, what's a mountain on the side of the sea? A Bluffs Rogue?
Cliffs of Dover Rogue?
King's Landing Rogue? I don't know, it's just...
What?
It's a mountain next to a sea, all right? It's kind of interesting because the deck keeps a, you know, typically in your ideal kind of hands, it keeps a pretty high hand size. It's back with Evil Cable Rats, Novice Engineer, Pharaoh Cat, and of course, Evil Miscreant. You know, you put those together with Spirit of the Shark and Shadow Steps, you're looking at potentially a lot of cards in hand throughout the whole game.
Yeah, I think, you know, it's not necessarily a consistent 3-mana, 4-mana Mountain Giant deck like most Mountain Giant decks that you see are. You know, you look back at Even Lock, you look at current iterations of Mage, Classic Handlock, or whatever. Like, most of the time, they'll play those Giants for 3 or 4. In this deck, I think it's 5 or 6 most of the time, but that's very similar to how much you were paying for a Sea Giant in the old deck a lot of the time anyway. And as you said, you do have those high roll spikes where you can fill up your hand with Evil Miscreants. or with lackeys from Evil Miscreants. But I think the big kicker is actually this matchup that Seiko's playing against right now. Because in this matchup, you were talking about how against Warrior, Flesh Shaper and Shaman was kind of a dead card because it has that Sea Giant effect and you can't discount it enough because they don't flood the board. That was a similar problem that the old Rogue used to have with the Sea Giants in their deck. It's a problem that Cyclone Mage used to have with the Sea Giants in their deck coming up against Warrior. So I think expecting a ton of Warrior coming in this week, still after the Dr. Boom nerf, most people expected a ton of Warrior and they were right. Mountain Giant over Sea Giant actually makes perfect sense in this list.
Yeah. And Bunnyhoppor faces the bad news early on. That 2-drop cost you.
Don't worry about it. Anti-synergy. You have to spend your hand to play an Edwin Van Cleef, and that makes your Mountain Giant suck.
Yeah, making the Mountain Giant a 3-mana 6/6 instead of a, like a 5-mana 8/8, that's just terrible.
Yep.
What on earth is Seiko gonna do? I guess just attack for 6 until this dies. I mean, it's turn 3. Why wouldn't Rogue have a 6/6 in play? And have killed your minion?
I must choose.
Can't think of any problems with what you're saying. This seems fine. As the room burns down around me.
It's not even, you know what's weird is it's like not even like as good of a card as it used to be.
Oof.
I just still hate playing against it.
Oof. He drain lifed it.
It's like I look at Burly Shovel Fist and I just go, why? Like the number of times I have lost to that off of like an Evolve or a Conjurer's Calling or just like my opponent having it off of some random thing for some reason, I'm like, why are you a 9-mana 9/9 rush? Like right now of all times, like Edwin Van Cleef is just a big dumb thing that happens and there's not really much you can do about it.
I'm really confused about why we started talking about Burly Shovel Fist.
Well, that card just confuses me on its existence.
How did that segue happen?
That card, its existence confuses me.
Oh, like Edwin Van Cleef.
Yeah.
Also, okay, fine. Yeah.
It was a 3-step logic process.
Yeah, I think you skipped 2 of them, but I do understand.
No, I addressed them.
Okay.
Just very vaguely.
Okay. But yeah, another round of nerfs recently came out, and there's kind of a vintage Hearthstone meme at this point that Edwin, dodged another one. He's still in the game, still trucking away.
It's only won all 5 world championships.
I wonder.
Yeah, no comment.
All right, that's my pedestal for the day.
Oh, that's the one.
Usually the other ones, they're not really rants. They're just like things that I think.
I think so. Edwin Van Cleef talk aside, let's go back to the very strange-looking play of Hero Power Shield Slam from Bunnyhoppor on turn 3. You were kind of on your weird Burly Shovel Fist segue at the time, but I was going to say it looks strange because it's not setting up for a top deck, because if you were to top deck the Restless Mummy anyway, it would just kill the 6/6 on 4. But what it was setting up for was this exact eventuality where he forces Seiko to have threat into threat to stop this happening. Seiko did have it, but the Edwin is still odds-on to die in that situation. I know it's dramatic, but the Edwin does die the enormous majority of the time in that position. So that's actually, like, this is the worst outcome for Bunny, essentially. It's like the best curve that Seiko could have had to play against what he decided to do. Hero Power Shield Slam, Warpath the turn after, Dynamatic. So all he was trying to do was just chip into breakpoints turn after turn to reduce the total health on the board, so that Dynamatic then came down and could have potentially been a full clear if Seiko wasn't able to follow it up, with minion into minion, but that's exactly what Seiko had.
Honestly, the fact that it's been SI-70 instead of Blink Foxes is a major blessing for Bunnyhoppor as well.
Also true, yeah.
There's 2 less cards in Seiko's hand. Vendetta's not active this turn, and even though he's at 17, I feel like with our Mega Dillo and Tomb Ward in hand, he is quite protected from the scenario.
Yep.
Largely because those were SI-78 instead. And Sottle, I know that you've had things to say about 4-mana Vendettas.
I mean, I have been objectively proven wrong on stream by Orange himself. So
I don't remember that.
No?
No.
Okay, yeah. I think it's pretty clear which one of us is willing to admit defeat now.
I don't remember it.
Oh, okay.
It's not an admission. I don't know what you're talking about.
So yeah, I made a statement last season that no one in the history of Hearthstone has ever spent 4 mana on Vendetta and won a game. That is no longer true because it actually just happened on stream.
Yeah, and Seiko leaving up an Armadillo for a turn. That is not good. This is going to get worse from here for Seiko.
It is. Just in the immediacy, this turn, that 4-6 snip snap is quite annoying for Bunnyhoppor to have to deal with. But this is kind of the last difficult turn. And look, yet again, we're here on turn 7 for a Warrior saying this is the difficult turn now. I do wonder, like, does Control Warrior like have to change the build to find something more to do in this turn? Like, be it something you can spend 7 on, be it like more combinations of 5+2 or 3+4, like effective things that you can spend 7 mana on.
Well, I think that's part of the reason we've seen Harrison and Weapons Project come back in.
I think that's a great point, yeah.
Just that being able to generate cards is a big deal. And, you know, Bunnyhoppor goes fishing with Omega Assembly here, I think to try to find specifically a mech taunt. I don't think he cares which one it is, really, just to find something else to pay off for our Armadillo in that spot. And since he doesn't have that, now what I'm wondering is, just does he, yeah, I was just about to say this is just tempo the Harrison because he has built a lead in terms of, you know, what's going to happen in the next couple of turns. And so you just want to supplement your board position and say, if I don't lose from here, I'm in great shape to win the game. And I think that might be true.
Lucky is huge here if it comes. No.
It's still a pretty big deal, though. I mean, Titanic Lackey is something that we haven't really talked about with rogue decks. Like, rogue decks have typically, outside of removal, they don't really have a way to protect themselves.
No. I mean, we haven't really talked about Lackey Rogue in general. We just haven't seen a great deal of it. The decks that have been doing well with Rogue haven't really been this kind of Shark-based build that does generate a ton of Lackeys. They've just been much more damage-focused.
Yeah, and Seiko needs to think about exactly Warpath interactions here. It's a possibility you're okay with Warpath because that means your opponent...
not a Tomb Warden.
Yes.
Yeah.
But at the same time, if you're going to win this game, I feel like Shark has got to be one of the ways that you win. Like, it's going to have to be a Heist Baron Togwaggle double activation, I think. So in my head, I'm favoring the Titanic Lackey onto the Shark here, protect it from Warpath, and go from there.
I think you make a compelling argument. Count them, 3 raises of the eyebrows from Bunnyhoppor in reaction to this turn. Oh, 4. No, we're getting up there.
Not once, not twice, but thrice.
5. Ooh, 6. Okay.
Wait, that was 7! I've never really noticed if he just does that a lot.
Yeah.
Or if that is specifically because of the turn.
Right.
Where in his head he's like, I'm really not playing Tomb Warden here? All right. I guess, Gabe, if you're going to twist my arm.
Scrap Hound being played seems unlikely because he has, like, we use the term, like, Reno Ziliax quite a lot over the few days. Like, double buff Ziliax plus a Scrap Hound. Yeah, that qualifies. That is a legitimate Reno Ziliax.
Colossus of the Moonbound! Like, no, Seiko needs big stuff this game. That's the only way he's going to win is big, dumb stuff.
Okay.
And so finding a Colossus of the Moon from a Pharaoh Cat, that's a big deal.
It's just the most hyped I've ever heard anyone get over a Colossus of the Moon.
Ooh, you should have seen me open that card.
Oh, really?
I didn't open a gold one, though. I was really sad about that.
I think I did. I tweeted a pack I opened that was like...
Wait a minute. I'm sorry to interrupt you. Is there ever merit to Goblet because you have Mountain Giant?
No.
What if you filled your hand with Mountain Giants?
What if you filled your hand with one of the other 17 cards and not the Mountain Giant?
Well, then the Mountain Giant gets a 7-mana discount?
Oh, I see what you're saying. Okay, okay. All right.
Whoa.
All right. I still say no, but I do not think that statement was insultingly stupid anymore.
New meta. He took the Goblet! He took the Goblet! New meta! I am pumped!
Is this right?
It's gotta be.
I am unconvinced.
You mana cheat the Mountain Giant with a Goblet. What if you hit the Mountain Giant? That is legendary. I don't even know what the best card he could hit is now. That's probably just like Life Drinker or something, but...
What now?
He does still have both Shadow Steps remaining.
That's not a bad one to hit. Shadow Step is a good card.
With that hand?
Not with this hand, but
Right.
there's still a ton of battle cries left in the deck.
Yep.
There's also still Leroy left in the deck.
Yep.
Yeah, Bunnyhoppor going for this massive defense turn here, I think makes a lot of sense after the treasure. You want to be in a fantastic position if your opponent loads onto the board.
I cannot believe we're about to see. I have only ever done that. I've done it like for memes and for fun, just to see what happened, and like unwinnable games where it's the only out I could think of. But apart from that, I have only done it seriously in Pogo Room, when you can guarantee that you are hitting the Pogos. Wah wah.
Bunnyhoppor furrowed his brow at the goblet.
Yep.
3 mana Mountain Giant.
Yeah.
The problem is you can't kill this scrap hound.
The problem is there's just a 9/4 that kills it, and then his hand is a Colossus of the Moon and a bunch of Shadow Steps.
Or can he kill it?
Choose soon.
How many times is he going to step this lackey? Place your bets now. How many times is it getting Shadow Stepped, Admirable?
Well, he has 5 Shadow Steps.
You saying 5?
Well, I mean, Seiko uses Shadow Steps.
That's 2.
This is his
That's
shtick.
3.
This is what he does. When he has Shadow
That's
Steps,
4.
he uses them.
No.
Well, that one's for the Colossus of the Moon.
Ah, gotcha.
Whoa, that's actually a big deal. Divine Shield Reborn taunted Colossus of the Moon.
Yeah.
That's a real threat.
It is.
And we said Mountain Giant was getting killed this turn, but if it's getting killed this turn, that means Dr. Boom's not coming down. And if Bunnyhoppor doesn't play that Dr. Boom this turn, it's going to be a while before it comes down. This game got super hype.
I'm still mind blown.
One of the reasons that my head went towards Goblet was because I've heard Seiko talk at length about how important cheating mana is. And he was talking about Mech Paladin specifically when he talked about this. And he said, I think Mech Paladin's bad because Glowstone Technician is really its only mana cheat.
Okay.
And I remember hearing that and thinking to myself, that really is its only mana cheat. Like, you have Galvanizer, but that really enables you. That's the worst draw. But hearing him say that, as soon as I saw the options on the Heist Baron, I was like, wait, the Goblet makes the Mountain Giant cost 3.
I wonder.
It was also just technically, I think, the biggest potential for something to happen.
It was, yeah, so I think, to me, the most compelling argument there, the one I can get on board with, is that, like, his hand kind of sucked. He had nothing going on. Like, 3 cards that cost 0 probably weren't going to close the gap on the buffed taunts that he knew Bunnyhoppor had in hand. So just go for the absolute nuts high roll. Like, that's the argument I can get down with. I think, like, in a vacuum, nah. But in that specific situation, sure. It makes sense.
All right, so Bunnyhoppor is run into a kicker here with the Colossus of the Moon. Brawl does not technically clear this out. You would have to add the Restless Mummy to it as well.
I mean, I kind of feel like he can just play Dr. Boom and take 10 if he really wants to.
10 adds up real quick.
Yeah. You do have 2 7/10 rushes you can play after that.
True story.
You also have a Bulldozer that you can rush the turn after that.
See what I mean about the Dr. Boom last turn?
Well, no, not really, because I think he is just free to play it this turn, unpunished. Like, yeah, okay, obviously unpunished sounds silly when you're about to take 10, but taking 10 when you're at 61 is not as big a deal as you might think it is.
Yeah, clear the Divine Shield. He almost attacked that lackey, and I was like, wait!
Well, he does know there's 4 Shadow Steps in the hand. Okay.
Oh, this game is awesome!
Now we've got some value. I was going to say, yeah, he does know that there are 4 Shadow... Oh, I know there's 3 Shadow Steps.
Oh, he is using Shadow Steps.
So, in that, like, maybe there was merit to just killing the lackey on the previous turn, just so this 10-10 didn't become a 10-16 or whatever Seiko would choose to make it. I don't know.
How many more Shadow Steps? Important. Seiko actually used the Shadow Step he drew first. Like the one that was hidden from Bunnyhoppor.
Oh, did he really? Okay.
Yeah. And, I mean, that tells me he wanted to use all the Shadow Steps this turn. But he's realized that when you add this many lackeys to your hand, what ends up happening is, well, you end up with quite a bit of cards.
Yeah.
Choose soon.
I'm thinking we need a shark stat. Titanic Body will give you +2 health. Taunt. Let's get another lackey.
Yep.
Yep, Bunnyhopper's got some good gear this game.
He sure does. Seiko did expose himself a little bit to a further brawl by playing the extra minion, but again, his hand size is such that he just kind of wants to get some of it out and onto the board.
Yeah, the game plan from here is figure it out. And it's pretty much a work in progress sort of thing.
Yeah.
It's like when Bob Ross starts the painting and he just draws that line and you're like, what are you doing? This was such a beautiful painting. And then suddenly it becomes a tree with like branches coming off of it and you go, oh. That's where we're at in this game.
Well, start opening some boxes.
Ooh, Violet Haze. That's where you're at this game, seriously.
Ooh, more value.
It's going to be death by 1,000 cuts, and I might even quite literally mean 1,000.
Yeah.
Good players favor face damage. Oh, come on, Violet Haze. You pick up just death rattles in general. You could have been weapons. Could have been good death rattles.
Also, since you called me out on saying that you might have a bias towards it, like, favoring face damage here would just be smashing Kobold lackeys into the face.
Whoa, 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 whoa. That's later on face damage.
It is, yeah.
I'm kind of talking specifically about the use of Goblin Lackey, right? Like, I so often see players hold that card specifically to rush a minion.
Right.
Like, even in spots where I'm like, you are never doing that. Just take the one. Just a free damage. He's just giving it to you. Seven, 10, 2 more. It's been in hand this long.
Yes, it has.
That honestly is such a fantastic job from Seiko to put Bunnyhoppor in such a spot where like 7-10 Tomb Warden is just sitting in hand waiting for the right moment.
Yeah, just wasn't a good play.
And somehow he's just still got 9 cards in hand. After all the nonsense that's happened this game, somehow Seiko still has 9 cards. I don't know how he does it. But something's got to give this turn.
Ziliak's on the Harvest Golem.
Unity. Precision.
Keep it separate.
Perfection.
Ah,
That makes sense. He wants to evolve it, yeah.
Minus lifesteal, plus 4 health.
Double time and double
And
pay.
minus 6 health.
too soon.
Yeah, Tomb Wardens did a number on this turn.
They did.
Seiko, he's wanting to hold Kobold Lackeys and Ethereal Lackeys specifically for Shark. He wants to draw Sharks so bad, and I just don't feel like he's got the
Well,
anymore.
I'm curious. We talked about this last turn. You know, you were saying, oh, I really like the Rush Lackey being used. But now, you know, of course, I'm looking at it with the benefit of hindsight. We talked about how well Seiko has played around having those huge Tomb Wardens come into play. The Rush Lackeys were his best tool against those Tomb Wardens, and only being able to use one of them there instead of two has cost him a lot more resources from his hand in being able to trade through them.
I'm looking at Shark and Shark only being the massive impact. Like, it needs to be Shark and then Ethereal Lackey with Shadow Step and nonsense.
Well, I think his, like, that's kind of what I'm saying, is that his hand size has now dwindled to the point where even Shark itself is not like a massively game-ending impact because he had to use so many Kobold Lackeys and other things to deal the damage through, as opposed to just having the Rush to do it instead. So maybe I'm just winding back and saying that that Rush Lackey shouldn't have just been used for the 1 extra damage on the previous turn.
I guess here's, in Psycho's head, there's just no way the 7/10 Tomb Warden exists, right?
Why?
Because your opponent didn't play a 7/10 Tomb Warden.
But you've had a 10/10, the turns he didn't play it, you've had a 10 attack Divine Shield on the board.
Well, that's not true. Armagadillo came down on turn 6.
Yes.
And then on turn 8, you didn't see a 7/10 Tomb Warden. Like, I think after this many turns, there's a reasonable conclusion that it's just not there.
I don't agree with that. I think we looked at it each turn, and neither of us suggested that you should have just jammed the Tomb Warden on any of those turns.
I agree, but we also have, you know, view of both sides.
But we're talking about hand read, right? Which is an assumed view of both sides. So
Fair
that's
enough.
relevant.
I'm a big fan of that 3-mana 2/3.
How come?
It just gives you little stuff to do. I think one day that card's going to be super good. I don't know how. There's a lot of stuff packed into one card, though.
Okay.
Just stuff. I think this turn from Seiko, you know, they've become noticeably weaker throughout. I mean, Lackeys have done quite a bit, but they're just not doing enough right now. Obviously, Dr. Boom's scheme, not a fantastic find.
Such a bad card.
I feel like somewhere along the line that card originally said shuffle a bomb into the opponent's deck.
Oh, come on, no. Why would you even say that?
And they were like, man, this is a bad idea. Like Alex shuffle 19 bombs in or whatever. You're like, okay.
Chucky just comes running into the boardroom, just waving the card. Like, what is this?
Stop!
Who printed this thing?
Stop!
Oh, Jesus, right, what can we change it to? I don't know, armor? Yeah, okay, fair enough.
The true warrior identity.
Wait, shuffling bombs or gaining armor?
Armor.
Okay,
All armor all the time.
fair enough.
I don't like this Omega Devastator crap. I want taunts and armor. That's it. I want a taunt that gains armor for each taunt minion that I have. And then whenever a taunt minion dies, it gains armor. And then depending on how much armor you have, you could do something extra with taunts.
Your mind shall.
Get these off of me!
You always have to see, but not for long. But that's not doing much when your opponent's at 43. And I think at this point, Psycho's just been got.
Yeah.
I wonder how much different this game would have been if he had Blink Foxes on turn 3 and 4 instead of SI.
Yeah, just a couple of extra resources here and there might have started the snowball effect, might have changed some key decision points.
The bottom of his deck is just such high quality, too. It's 2 copies of Hedgeclan Burglar, the other Spirit of the Shark, another Mountain Giant, Evil Miscreant. Like, he's just got so many important cards in the bottom. It feels reminiscent of game 1, where it's like he put up a fight, his draw wasn't bad, but it wasn't spectacular.
Right.
And I think against, you know, good decks and a player like Bunnyhoppor, you're going to need some pretty spectacular draws.
And it's very easy to get distracted this game by all the crazy wackiness that has happened for the last, 8 to 10 turns. Rewind all the way back. I promise you there are not many players in the world that Hero Power Shield slam that Edwin.
Followed by a Warpath twice that
Right.
doesn't do anything.
Right. And if you don't Hero Power Shield slam that Edwin, he was not winning that board back to any point. He does not play an Armagadillo that goes off for 2 turns and gets him 2, 7, 10, 2. Like, none of that stuff happens if he doesn't come up with a 3-turn plan to kill a 6/6 Edwin Van Cleave.
Yeah, you straight up lose if you don't do that.
Too soon.
Ah, the misery of Sap versus Dr. Boo. Sure, you can make him spend 9 on it, but it's coming back with Rush.
He's got to not die right now.
Yep.
I just don't get how Seiko has cards left.
Every time Seiko plays Admirable, it's just like, how does he always have resources?
Man, I would have run out of cards on turn 4, and I would have had 2 cards in my hand the rest of the game. Seiko had extra stuff on turn 4 and had 10 cards in his hand for a very large portion of this game.
I think even you would have struggled to play a hand so aggressively with 8 Shadow Steps in it that you ran out of resources. Just saying.
I mean, he played about as aggressively as he could with it, too. There's not really just much you could do.
Yeah. Yeah, he used like 4 Shadow Steps on 1 turn on Lackeys, and then it was just really the Evil Miscreant draw that gave him some kind of hope.
He needed the generation to show up big, and it just did not.
Yeah, 1 Miscreant. If he'd have picked up 2 Miscreants, a Miscreant plus a Shark, something like that, then maybe he could still be in the value game here. I think maybe he still ends up conceding the tempo too hard, though. Spending so much of his turn just, bouncing resource generators, although, of course, Lackeys go some way to compensate from that with just how powerful they are.
Backstab your Zarek.
Master Cloner, yeah, if you cast any spells on this minion, resummon it. Great fun with Conjurer's Calling, by the way.
You love my new recipe. At last, immortality.
He's thinking about it. He's thinking about it.
I mean, you turn a backstab into a 5/3.
Yeah.
All right, so 3 Violet Hazes have been gone through. All but the Evil Miscreant has been gone through, so our generation is down to 2 Hench Clan Burglars, a Blink Fox, and an Evil Miscreant. 1 Pharaoh Cat.
Maybe that right there is an argument that you are supposed to backstab the Zarek because you sapped that Bulldozer. You know it's there. You know it's just an incredibly good play this turn against the 5/5 that you have.
So I was thinking you end up backstabbing the Bulldozer was the thought. Like you try to do something to kill the Bulldozer then?
Your hand doesn't do that though, right? Like, it doesn't help you kill that Bulldozer. So it'd be backstab plus a top deck you're playing for. I don't know if I'm particularly enthralled with that argument.
Looks like you're going to Leroy it.
Sure. I mean, it's hard to be critical in this position because
I'm not going to.
It's just gone. It's just well and truly gone at this point.
I'm still just shocked that he's in the game. Like, it's crazy to think that he's had this many cards. That, like, he is still in these. He's just not dead. Like, you should be dead by now.
Finally, a Henge Clan burglar shows its face.
Yeah, you're a bit late, bro.
Oh yeah, Arcane Intellect. That's what we needed.
Oh, I forgot that was there. There's that shark. Yeah, Seiko fought valiantly in this one and put on an entertaining game, but Bunnyhoppor comes away with the 2-0 in our featured match of the day. Very strong technical play from him, and very much demonstrated in game number 2 with an armor up shield slam onto a 6-6, which just takes down a 6-4, a double warpath, reducing it to a 6-2 and a 3-1 on board, and then having to risk the Dynomatic, perhaps not killing an Edwin on that turn. Gets the payoff of killing the Edwin, but that's all set up because he realized, I have to start doing work on this or this game is gone.
Yeah, and there's things that can go wrong with that. Like, the thing that happened was a thing that can go wrong with that, is that Seiko just had a couple of 3-3s to play afterwards, which overloads the amount of health his Dynomatic could deal with. There was also Evil Miscreant that you had to factor in as well, which would add 4 health to the board and make it even harder. But the point being, all of the things were things that were going to go wrong if he didn't make that play.
Yeah.
If he didn't make that play, there's just a 6-6 Edwin that he's not killing without a Restless Mummy top deck ever. And like, you can get carried away with all the crazy stuff that happened after that. We don't even get to live in the universe where we get to that point if Bunny doesn't make that play in the early game.
Yeah, it's a true story. And so let's get to Winner's interview here. Bunnyhoppor, can you hear us?
Hey, yeah, I can.
Congratulations on the win here. Really entertaining games. Are there any standout moments in this series for you personally? Like any decisions you thought were tough or anything you thought was super interesting from your perspective?
I mean, the turn 2 flunky was a huge mistake, and then I have to make a bunch of really difficult decisions to make up for that mistake. Keeping it in the mulligan is probably even wrong. And I don't know, yeah, I have to shield slam and then warpath and then hope my Dynomatic kills it, which I think it does on average with the minions that he plays. But yeah, that one, and then playing the Shadow Walk in the turn that I played it. I top deck Swarm Queen Hagatha, which is very likely if I double her Battlecry to give me stuff to clear both of his Nomi boards. But like I said, it's very likely, but it's not guaranteed, and it's very easy for me to just get baited into playing the Hagatha there and just take the very likely outcome instead of winning all the time by playing Shadow Walk.
I think it's really interesting that you frame the Edwin thing as like a mistake on your part to even play the 2-2, because Admirable and I were saying, oh, it's so sick that he's actually recognized he has to shield slam that and then warpath and set it up, but like you being so critical of yourself, you're like, I shouldn't even be in that position to start with. It just goes to speak to the mindset of a top player. But I want to ask you about the Shaman versus Druid matchup in like a general sense, because it's a matchup I practiced a lot this week. Like, how do you feel? Who do you think is favored in the matchup, or what do you think are some of the like key points of decision in the matchup?
I think it's very dependent on what kind of list you play.
Okay.
If the matchup is favored, because so some Shaman decks are very good at fatiguing the Druid. Like especially in this list, if you ever get down Hagatha, you usually get to a spot where you fatigue a Druid list that doesn't play Elise. And I think also since my list plays the double evolve, like the 0 mana evolve is so crazy for Druid to deal with. Like you go kind of wide on board, then you play like a 2 mana 3/4, you evolve it for 0 mana, and suddenly you have an 8-drop, and Druid's like, well, where's my naturalize? So I think this, like with the list that he played and I played, I think this matchup is slightly favored for me.
And I kind of want to talk about the balance patch and a lot of things that we've seen shake out since. It feels to me like aggro rogue and Highlander hunters targets are largely taking a step aside where the metagame is concerned. It feels like those two decks got weaker by proxy of what they were preying on got weaker. Where do you feel like things are shaking out for rogue and for hunter and for priest in this metagame? Because it feels like everything has shaken up so much just because of the matchups you expect to face.
Yeah, I think there's like 3 tier 1 decks, which is the warrior, the shaman, and the druid, and then you have to find that would have expected everybody to bring, but that might change over lists and iterations and stuff like that. And yeah, the last deck is always just to make it awkward for, in certain ban and pick situations, it's always just there to make it awkward for your opponent to play certain matchups because they just become quite bad. So you have to, like, I don't know, it comes down to mind games, which is a little bit silly. But I think the best bring this priest would have been this week would have been priest. So I think I liked Hunter Ace's lineup the most this week.
Nothing more from me. Just again, pleasure watching you play as always, Bunny. 3-1 record now. Long may it continue. Hope you have another good run through the season.
Thank you.
I'm going to ask every player about their opinions on this today because in Americas, almost everyone had a different answer on what they thought was best. And TJ's been pushing Priest, like just constantly. He's like Bonsomni Priest, Bonsomni Priest. And we heard Hunter Ice talk about it yesterday, and I'm a believer. You know, I've faced a number of Priests playing ladder, and it is quite a force to be reckoned with. It's had a fantastic performance in Grandmasters thus far. You know, we've seen the bad side of it, but we've really seen the good side of it. And so to hear Bunnyhoppor say that he thought Hunter Ace's lineup was best, I think that's really reinforcing that push that TJ's been making, that Bonsomni Priest is the truth.
Yeah, I think most people in Grandmasters, or some people at least, were just a day or two late in rediscovering that Priest was actually just kind of still crazy. So they didn't quite make the submission deadline cutoff. But if you're following Twitter last night, for example, I know ladder finishes right now aren't the most prestigious thing in the world, but a lot of people who were, as we're approaching the end of the season, posting, you know, top 3, top 2, top 1, top 5, top 10, like a lot of those were coming out with priest lists as well. So it's no great surprise that just step by step, hour by hour, day by day, people are coming around and saying, you know what, Priest is still a really good deck after that now.
Yep, and I think it's going to be here to stay for a bit too, because it is a tough deck to do a number on. It's just a force to be reckoned with. So that's our feature match in the books.